So in your book, you talk about like getting into porn and like being just overwhelmingly excited about the opportunity to do it. Like it's just being like like for people that grow up and want to be astronauts, like getting a job at NASA or something. That's kind of the vibe that I got.
Oh yeah.
Like if somebody went back to 15-year-old you and been like, hey, you're gonna be a porn star one day, would that be a shock or would that be like, oh, cool? Like, how do you think your perception would have been?
It would have been a mixture of both. It would have been, wow, that's going to be cool, and then it would have been utter shock.
Yeah,
I mean, because even for all the people I grew up with, it was a shock, right?
yeah,
I mean, it's like you fast forward all the years, and you get the girls from high school that hit you up and are like, "Oh my god, I didn't know the quietest guy in the back of the class had the biggest dick." It's
yeah,
like
yeah,
it's just like, well, I mean, the two don't go hand in hand,
yeah,
but
yeah,
yeah, I mean, it was. It definitely would have been something like if I look back at the 15-year-old version of me, it would have been shocked. But I think also the shock would have been that throughout this whole process, for me, it was really coming to terms that anything's possible,
okay,
right? Because especially growing up in Canada where I did, and then growing up in the family that I did, because I don't have a family of entrepreneurs, right? Like I am the first one ever to come out of our
yeah, yeah,
family.
yeah. So you didn't have a
So
model.
yeah, there's no modeling, and in their perspective, nothing's possible, right?
Huh.
Like it's like, well, you go, you get some sort of degree, and then you get a job, you work for somebody, and that's life. And then
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
just like, left turn here, right?
Yeah, I mean it's got to be interesting because like back then you didn't have the internet. Like you couldn't just go on there and submit a bunch of requests like, hey, I want to be in on this. So like I'm imagining you had to kind of work your way in, and it was definitely probably a lot more of a closed thing back then, right?
Oh, it was super closed. I mean, it's funny, like when I think about the process that people would go in today to get into it versus what I did, uh,
Yeah.
it- now it's easier than ever. I mean, it might still be hard, but I mean, it was super closed back then. I remember when I first, after I begun filming in Vancouver, and then there was an editor that worked at the company, and he pulled me aside one day and he said, hey, the owner's never going to tell you this, but you're really good at this. You should think about going down to LA. You could make some serious money. Now, I'm 21 years old at the time. I'm like, serious money? There's money in this? I had no
Yeah, yeah.
clue, right?
Because you're just doing it mostly for you enjoyed it,
Yeah, yeah.
Sure,
It
sure,
was
the
it was
cash was
fun,
great,
and I
but
mean,
yeah,
they paid me more than I was making at my security job at the time, but it wasn't like I was making some big money, not
yeah,
not at
yeah.
all. Um, but I remember when we were first gonna, start sending things out. Like I got the trade magazine of the time, which was the AVN, and I went to the back because if you went through, the back end of it, you could see, okay, here's all the different companies that at least advertise in this trade magazine. I'm getting the addresses. We we probably put together at least 30 VHS screeners,
Mm,
and we just sent them to these addresses because I mean there's no email, there's no nothing. It's like there's an address and like let's post this, let's send it, and it's got a phone number attached to it that they can get a hold of me because I had a pager, right? I mean this was so you think about the amount of effort to go
yeah,
through this,
yeah.
right? Like sending all these packages, hoping somebody gets back to you. And I remember out of all those things, I had three people that got back to me. Right? And
Out of how many you think you probably sent out there?
oh, I mean, we sent at least, yeah, I don't know if it was 30 or 40 or something.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that was really comical too, because I remember following up on a lot of them, right? Like, so I would call their office, like, hey, I sent you a package. Did you see it? And one of the funniest things was a company that I actually ended up working for a long time later. I actually ended up they gave me my first gig directing movies, so I was with that company forever. But at
yeah.
this time, I called them up, and the guy literally said, "Hey, if you sent us something, it's in the trash," and hung up on me. I told him that story later, right?
Yeah,
He's like,
yeah.
yeah. He goes, that sounds like something I would say. I was like, yeah, you did, I remember.
Yeah, I mean, but still, I mean, a 10% response rate's not bad at all. You know,
Yeah.
If I was doing a marketing campaign, particularly like cold manual outreach like that, straight through the mail, I'd be like, that's a success. You know, so
Well, I did have one thing ahead of the game in the sense of the screeners that I sent out were screeners of me already working. It was a collage
yeah,
of scenes that I had done because trust me, if I had just gone saying, "Hey, I want to see if I can do this," nobody would have
yeah,
even
yeah,
called me back because
because
and it made sense to me like over time because I understand it from the company's perspective. I would do the same thing
sure,
because there was just way too much money riding on the line for these companies. And we're talking about a time, when I started, there was no Viagra, there was no nothing. It's like it was very black and white. It was very linear. It's like you can do this or you can't. And
yeah,
you
yeah,
knew who could do it and who couldn't really quick.
yeah, yeah,
That's why you would always see, it was like the same 20, 30 guys, like just that was it because they could do it under the pressure and nobody else could. So, when you get that much money riding on the line and they got some big house in the Hollywood Hills and they got a whole lighting crew and then they got the makeup crew and they got catering and you can't get it together.
yeah,
It's like it's this it's like being the one widget in the Rolls-Royce aircraft that just holds everything together and that's
yeah.
you as the guy.